I feel like I should get this out of the way, right at the beginning. I'm not writing this because I just discovered that I'm living in a simulated town. In fact, I've known since I was about 12 years old. A bit of backstory before I get into my problem. My town is named Truman. Yes, exactly like the movie. I'll get into that later. And the entire place is fake. Pretty sure it's all computer generated. So wherever my brain really is, it's probably jacked into an environmental simulator sophisticated enough to trick my senses. Everything looks and sounds real, even compared to actual cities, which I've only recently been able to research on the internet. The food tastes real, I think. I've never been anywhere outside of Truman, so I have no frame of reference. But it certainly looks like pictures and videos of real food that I've seen. The town itself is about 20 kilometers from one end to the other, and everything is built within a circular island surrounded by endless oceans. No airport, no ships ever coming or going, so basically no way to leave the island. Standard fake town stuff, I think. As I said, I never realized how weird all of this was until I was 12. I was on my computer late one night, doing some research on the internet, which was pretty much a joke. If you're at all familiar with North Korea's internet access, imagine that with about 50% fewer pages. Yeah, not a great amount of detail about the outside world. But then that night, I remember my computer monitor flickering violently. The system powered down for a short time, and when it came back on, bam, real internet access, real news from the real planet Earth. It took a long night of clicking around and reading articles for me to put the pieces together and finally come to the obvious conclusion. There is no town called Truman. Not mine, that is. And you know what? I honestly didn't care. It was a shock at first, no question, and it took a while to really come to grips with my situation. But in the end, it didn't bother me at all. I spent a long time researching other cities and found out they also had pizza restaurants and movie theaters and things like that. And really, that's all my 12-year-old self cared about. I wasn't missing out on anything. But a lot of those cities also had violent crime, poverty, drugs, and a ton of other bad things that really freaked me out as a kid. Truman didn't have any of that. So I just kind of kept it to myself. The thing is, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to bother me. I mean, I think the whole point of why I'm here was so that I would eventually figure it out and react in some kind of way. The next morning, my parents asked me if I had finished all my homework, and I just said, yep, and showed them the report I had written about tigers or whatever. They both stopped and stared at me, like they were taken aback. My dad said, yeah? You didn't find anything else? You were on the computer all night. My mom said, yeah, you didn't find anything unusual? Something you want to talk about? I said, nah, just tiger stuff. What's for breakfast? And after a few seconds of silence, they both went back to normal and made me some pancakes. It never came up again. On top of all that, and I don't know if I've made this clear yet, but this town is a really crappy virtual environment. If the goal was to have me believe it was a real place for a long time, someone seriously dropped the ball. I recently discovered Rick and Morty. And you know the episode where the alien scammers put Rick into the simulation? I'm talking that level of incompetence. To start with, they named the town Truman, for Christ's sake. Go on Google and type in Truman fake town, and literally the first result is the movie about Jim Carrey. living in a fake town. And as if that wasn't obvious enough, there's the whole endless ocean nonsense. I've mentioned before that, unlike The Truman Show, this town isn't a set. The people in it aren't actors pretending to be ordinary citizens. This whole place is computer generated, which means they could easily have just simulated a planet with no easily perceivable boundary. They would just have to render new environments as I walked through them, which would be much harder to detect. But no, I get the endless oceans. So I think the whole internet glitch thing was supposed to be my big tip-off that things weren't right. And that was supposed to spark me into some kind of, I don't know, freak out, anger, terror, insanity. I don't know what the goal was, but I'm fairly sure that they, whoever they are, didn't expect me to just say whatever and roll with it for this long. They've tried to get to me a lot throughout my childhood, but I just kept refusing to engage. I was walking along the coastline at the edge of town one time, and a mysterious-looking man approached me and said, "Did you ever notice how no boats or planes ever leave from here?" And I just said, "Nope," and kept going. I've received dozens of cryptic emails all along the same vein. Something's not right in Truman. We are all in terrible danger. This is all a lie. Wake up. You have to wake up. And I ignored them all. Things always went back to normal after a while anyway. I started dating a girl when I was 16. She was also fake, as is everyone else here. But when I was 16, I didn't care. One night, she calls me around 1 a.m., saying, "Nathan, they're coming. They're coming for you. You have to get out of Truman. Get out." And then the line went dead. She was gone for a couple months, and then one day just showed up back at school. We went out a few more times after that. These prompts stopped around the time I turned 18. For a few years after that, things were more or less normal. I'm a pretty simple person, I guess, and I never had any reason to rock the boat. I had my fake family, my fake friends, lots of fake, fun stuff to do. And since they never bothered to program a fake college into Truman, I no longer had to go to school. For a while, I tried to get a fake job, but that didn't pan out. Every manager at every store gave me the same response when I asked. A few seconds of dead silence, followed by, "I'm sorry, but that's unavailable at this time." It didn't matter though, because my parents continued giving me money every week and never asked me to move out. In short, I was content. So here's why I'm finally talking about this after all this time. I really don't think the simulation was intended to run this long. In fact, I'm not sure anyone is even still monitoring what's going on in here. A few weeks after I turned 22, I noticed the first glitch at a park near my house. A few men were playing a game of checkers on a table near a tree. But one of them didn't have a chair. He was sitting, but there was nothing underneath him. Nothing but air. I blinked a few times at this, and suddenly the chair was there. I was so used to my virtual environment by this time that I didn't think, weird, must be a trick of the light. I thought, oh look, a glitch. Boy, this place sucks. The glitches were actually pretty amusing at first. There would be people at cafes, drinking hot cups of coffee, but there would be no cup. Just a sloshing pile of coffee in their bare hands. Sometimes, I'd go into rooms and it would take a few seconds for the color and texture of the walls to appear. Or a delivery person would come to the house, hand an invisible package to my mom or dad, and they would proceed into the living room and unwrap what looked like thin air. Other times, random objects would appear in places they shouldn't be. People would stomp around in boxes instead of shoes. I saw a guy writing notes in a journal, but he was using what looked like a narrow tube of toothpaste. I saw a teenage girl take what I thought was supposed to be a phone out of her purse, but instead it was a very large human tongue, which she put up to her ear and began talking into. As the glitches began to increase in frequency, it became more and more difficult to interact with my environment. Once, I was stung 5 times by bees that I couldn't see, because apparently I had walked through a flower patch that I also couldn't see. When people started glitching as well, I became a little more concerned. I went out for a walk one afternoon and noticed there was a person walking about 20 meters ahead of me. But no matter what I did, he was always at that same distance. He never changed his walking pace, even after I ran as fast as I could or stood completely still. He still appeared to be walking at that same rate, but always at exactly the same 20-meter distance. I would turn a corner, and there he was, 20 meters away. Every now and then I would see people driving past in a car, and none of them will have faces, just blank spaces above their necks. Sometimes people would arrive at a building, but instead of going inside, they would just walk straight up the side of the building towards the roof. When they reached the top, they would keep walking directly up into the sky until they were no longer visible. Or, you know that white noise buzz of many people talking in a crowd at once? That disappeared a while ago. Now they all just chant the same thing at the same time. Chat log unavailable at this 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 time. Over and over again. Over time, I stopped being able to interact with anybody. When I talked to people, their responses were either unintelligible sounds, or there would be no sound at all. I tried to get a coffee the other day, and the barista looked at me for a moment, and then began laughing, really loud, hysterical laughter, all while looking me directly in the eyes, until eventually I just left. Getting something as simple as food has become a major challenge. Things are so buggy that most of the time I either don't know what I'm getting or can't find someone who will sell it to me. I've tried to eat more than a few totally ordinary objects because I was sure they were supposed to be food. Finally, I caved. I went to talk to my parents one morning to finally tell them I just noticed something unusual was happening in Truman. Dad was sunk to his waist in the floor and was saying, "Hi there, how are you?" over and over again to the closed front door. "Hi there, how are you? Hi there, how are you? Hi there, how are you?" I went to find Mom instead. She was sitting on the couch reading a book with blank pages, but otherwise looking normal. "Mom, can I talk to you for a second?" She turned her head nearly 180 degrees around to look at me without moving her body whatsoever. I was looking on the internet last night, and I think something's wrong." Her expression didn't change. She said nothing. I think Truman might not be a real town. I think this town is fake. She stared. So, I mean, I'm pretty freaked out about this, so what do you think I should do? She continued to stare, then opened her mouth to say something. She seemed to change her mind and swiveled her head back to continue reading. Nothing changed. I need to get out of here. I've tried talking to other people, and exactly the same thing happens. I've been all over town, trying to find some other way to trigger whatever's supposed to end this simulation. But the prompts stopped so long ago that I'm worried it might be too late. Meanwhile, this town continues to fall apart at an alarming rate. The endless ocean is now just an untextured white void at the edge of town. Many buildings have turned into large rectangular boxes with no features. The sun doesn't even move anymore. It just hangs directly above the town. And the air is starting to get uncomfortably hot. I don't know if I have a body somewhere out there in the world. But if I do, I don't know how much more time it has, or what will happen if it dies. I'm running out of options here. Please, if you have any ideas, please help me.